It's a show near 5 years in the making. Lee, tell us who we've got.
Let's not mess around with this. We've got Mia Yim.
Yes. Mia Yim's long been a requested guest, and we finally got around to asking her. So we're very, very pleased to have her on the show. And, well, look, we're recording this introduction after we've already spoken to her. And quite frankly, it's a long show.
You can tell. You can see how long it is.
You don't want to listen to us talking. This weekend, she will be challenging for the NWA World Women's Championship. We're very pleased to finally welcome Mia Yim to the podcast. Mia, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. You've been an oft requested guest, and people have said, why don't you have Mia Yim on our show? And there's never been a good reason why we haven't. It just happens to be one of those things where we never really got the time to sort out a date. And it's funny, when we were talking before we started recording, we figured out that your wrestling career and our podcasting career here on the Women's Wrestling Podcast are almost exactly identical.
Yeah, I think Lee mentioned you guys probably did a podcast or premiered your podcast 9 days before I debuted. So, like I said before, it's just meant to be.
Absolutely. It's taken a long time to come around, but it's going to be worth it in the end.
But it does mean we have a lot to talk about as well.
That is true. I was getting some questions together earlier today. I was seeing what we wanted to ask you, and I was like, my God, there's a load to ask you. And then I saw, hang on, you're still only 25 years old. What?
Ugh, only 25? I feel like I'm 55. My goodness.
The road has owned you.
You have no idea.
Wow. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But let's start at the top. Let's start with the main reason, the justification for having you on this time, and that's the fact that you've got a big match coming up this weekend. As I just mentioned, you're challenging for the NWA World Women's Championship on Inspire Pro Wrestling in Austin, Texas. It's this Sunday, and you'll be challenging the champion Barbi Hayden in a first-time ever match. You've never been in the ring with Barbi before.
No, never. I remember a couple years ago when I used to work for Anarchy, I would see her at the shows, and I've talked to her and we hung out and stuff, but I've never wrestled her, and I've always loved her work, so I'm really excited to work her this weekend.
Well, that was one of the questions, or one of the things that I wanted to know is, I know you've never wrestled, it's being promoted as a first-time match, but you do know her, you've seen her, you know her style?
Yes, I've been to Anarchy maybe 3 or 4 times, and every one of those times, we've sat down and we talked and we hung out. I've seen her work live. I've seen her wrestle. I think I don't know if she's seen me or not, but I definitely know her, and I've seen her wrestle. So, and it's funny because every time that I did go down to Texas, there was never a chance for us to even be in the ring together. We always avoided each other in the ring. So it's awesome to finally get an opportunity to, after watching her for the last few years, and especially seeing how she's been definitely getting popular lately, I'm really excited.
Styles-wise, I'm really quite excited about seeing this one as well, because, you've obviously got your high-flying, your lucha style and all that sort of stuff, and she's very much, by her own admission, a couple of times we've had her on podcasts here, she talks about how she's a bruiser. She doesn't leave her feet very often. She's very old school. She'll keep you down. So I like the idea of having this sort of old school NWA style bruiser, and then you're the plucky, high-flying baby face. It just seems to work really well.
Yeah, I think I try to have a mixture of everything, just so whenever I am in the ring with somebody, whatever their style is, I kind of try to be the opposite, just because that's usually their weakness. So I'm probably definitely just gonna try to be in the air as much as possible and be as fast as hell.
Yeah, not put too much of a pressure on you as far as the match is concerned, but yeah, I think that's going to be a real one where the styles are going to should make a really good match. What do you know about Inspire Pro? I mean, we talked about them last week with Veda Scott as well on the podcast, and the whole idea of doing these shows where basically there's almost an exactly 50-50 split between men's matches and women's matches.
It's hard to say, just because until they contacted me, I heard of them, but I never really knew more about them. I generally heard a lot about them when I was working in Texas. But since I haven't been in Texas for, I want to say 2 or 3 years now, I haven't really dabbled in like what's been going on in Texas lately. So when they contacted me, it's like, oh, wait, I've heard of this company before. And Leva was the one that actually hooked me up with it too, because she was asking for my contact information for Inspire to contact me. And I was like, that sounds very familiar. And then when they came out with the poster and stuff, I was like, okay, yeah, I've definitely heard of this company before, but I've never seen their product before. But just looking at the poster, I do really like the fact that there's going to be multiple women's matches rather than a majority of the companies that do just like the one special women's match type thing. So I really like that it is half with men and women.
You're more than just a special attraction. You're the main event on the show here.
Oh gosh, I forgot all about that.
Yeah. You gotta finish big here.
Oh crap! Yeah, because Leva, Solo, and I are driving down, so it's about an 18-hour drive.
Oh god!
So I think we're going straight to the show. So I think that'll give me all the more reason to fly, because I'd be sitting on my butt for practically a whole day. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
How sort of sore and stiff do you get just from sitting in a driving position for like 18 hours? Because you can drive from the top to the bottom of the UK in about, I don't know, 10 maybe, but for that long a drive, it just must completely suck.
I think at this point I'm just used to it, and especially since there's gonna only be 3 of us in a car, like I'm so used to being sardined in an automobile where it's 5 people driving 10 hours or something. So just Solo, Leva, and I going to Texas for 18 hours. We'll have the whole back seat. I get to, if I'm sitting like shotgun, I can put my seat down. Like I feel like I'm getting business class on an airplane, just riding with 3 people. And we all can drive, so we're going to be taking shifts anyway. So, I mean, I think I'm just so used to being on the road and in a plane, just sitting, that it doesn't really faze me anymore. So, I mean, in the beginning, it sucks. And especially since there's not going to be a lot of people riding in the car, I'm definitely appreciating the space that we will be having. So I can't complain.
Now, my question, I'm thinking, if you get the 3 of you in a car for 18 hours, who's responsible for the music?
Whoever's driving.
That's always the right answer.
Yes, whoever is driving gets to control the music. So
except for country and western, which is unacceptable.
Well, Leva's kind of country, so. But
she is, yeah. But that's I don't know. You've got to have the general consensus that if it's country and western, you might get thrown out of the car.
No goat roping music is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, even if they do, I can't complain because I'm just gonna bring my phone, and if they do play any of that, then I'll have my own music to just put my earbuds in and listen to that.
What's your choice for when you're driving?
Oh my goodness. Probably now I'm on a Disney kick, so I just...
It's going to be Let It Go for 18 hours.
Pretty much. I got the Frozen CD. On my phone, I have like the Mulan soundtrack, Hercules, and then I have Pandora, so I have like Lion King and all the princesses, so I'm like on a Disney kick right now. So I'm probably going to be playing that on the way down, so I feel sorry for those girls.
I don't know, Solo strikes me as the sort of person who would enjoy that.
I always thought Solo was like... I've never had a road trip with her, so I'm actually really excited. But she comes off to me like she likes like house music and... what is it called? Like EDM or something. Like just very poppy and club music type stuff.
Straight up gangster rap.
That's Leva.
Okay, how do you put those two together?
I'm just kidding.
Leave us gangster rap and country, we've decided.
Well, yeah, she does like Childish Gambino, so I think she got a little gangster in her.
Oh man, imagine if the Dixie Chicks ever did Fuck the Police.
That'll make the news.
Oh man, someone should start a Kickstarter for that.
The Dixie Chicks are back, ladies and gentlemen.
Excellent. Well, speaking of the Dixie Chicks, let's go back to when they were last relevant. 2009.
Wow.
Whoa, get in. Did you see that? 2009. This is when you started in wrestling, or when you had your first match. But when did you start sort of getting involved with wrestling? When did you start getting involved with training and all that sort of stuff? Was it before that?
Yeah, I started training in 2007, right when I graduated high school. I basically, once I turned 18, I just signed myself up because I've always been a fan since I was little. And of course, I asked my parents if I could start training, and of course they said no. My dad wants me to be an actual girl, and I was not a fan of like the whole girly, like my mom put me in ice skating and swimming and instruments, and I was just not digging it. So of course, when they said no, I just sat and waited around. And especially after finishing high school, that there was a time where I had 2 months before I went into college. So I figured that this would be probably the best time to sign up, just because I can dedicate my full attention to wrestling, learning the fundamentals, learning the basics. So right when I turned 18, I signed up to this local school in Virginia, and after 2 months, I don't think I even got in the ring like the first month or so, and then I spent a majority of my time like going to the shows and setting up, paying the dues and everything. Mm-hmm. And finally, by the time I was able to get in the ring, I had to go back to school. And at that point, I went to school 2 hours away, and I also went there on a scholarship for volleyball. So I had volleyball, school, and I tried to train as much as I can. So basically, whenever I would say, we would have 3 a days. It'll be 5 o'clock in the morning until like 7, break, and then conditioning from like 12 to 1, and then a night volleyball conditioning from, I think it was like 5 to 7 or something. So immediately right after I was done with volleyball, I'd get in my car, drive 2 hours to training, and I trained for maybe about an hour and a half. Whoever wanted to stay late to help out did that, and then drove back. So I try to train at least 2 or 3 times a week with wrestling and whatever that could mesh well with my schedule. And I tried to make sure that I was very much prepared before I had my first match, and I waited about a year and a half before I actually debuted. And I think, me personally, I'm glad I took that route, just because I've had offers to debut elsewhere and debut super early, and I just didn't want my first impression to be like, oh, this girl sucks. So and I also wanted to wait until like the next summer came around, so I can, when I go back home for summer, I can focus on wrestling 100% again and make sure that I like am crisp and ready to go. I trained for about a year and a half to 2 years before I made my debut in 2009.
I mean, I'm guessing that because you mentioned about the volleyball, and it sounds like you always had that sort of athletic background to you, that when you were watching wrestling, the thing that attracted you to it was the athleticism side of it. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Absolutely. Like, I've always been a fan of football, hockey, like anything that was actually nitty-gritty, like sports, I loved, because I always wanted to play football. I played football for PE, even like whenever my friends would get together, we played football. Same with hockey, we played street hockey. So I've always been like really big into sports, and it definitely interests me when my dad actually got me to watch wrestling with him. It used to be like a family thing. My mom hated the idea, so it would just be me and my dad and my sister that would watch. And the first time I saw Chyna, I was like, this girl's incredible. And she was wrestling guys, and I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. And then I saw Lita, I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. Nobody can tell me that girls, because I told my dad I wanted to play football, and of course my dad said there's no girls in football. So when I saw a girl in wrestling, well, daddy can't tell me there's no girls in wrestling, because they're beating up the boys. So yeah, definitely the athleticism, the competition, and especially with the equality with men and women in wrestling, at least at that point with Chyna and Lita, definitely attracted me to the sport.
So were they the two people that sort of really sort of had the initial influence that made you a fan, or had you been watching for a little bit before they came around?
No, they were the ones that really made me a huge fan, because I don't, and I told you before we even started recording, I have the worst memory. So the first real thing that I remember was seeing like China, the Attitude Era, pretty much. China, Lita, The Rock, Stone Cold. So that was what I grew up with.
I mean, now let's go back to the debut then, the one that you sort of held off a year and a half to get to. You wanted to make sure you were right for your debut. Lots of people hate their debut matches. How was your debut?
I hated it.
There you go.
I hated it. It was. Oh my goodness, I don't even remember the name, because it wasn't for the place that I trained at, actually. It was at another place in North Carolina, and I drove down with my friend Mike, and I think this was really the first actual, aside from volleyball, like my first actual road trip for anything other than volleyball. And it was an intergender tag match, and it was so bad. Well, I wouldn't say it was that bad, but it's definitely...
Looking back now, you can say that it was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was not pretty, because I wanted to be in the ring with the boy, but then they wanted it to just be the girls versus girls and boys versus boys, and I was heel, which I thought was really cool, because I never played baby or heel before, so any role would have been awesome. But it was nice to know that my first role I could be mean, but it was just so yeah, I don't even know what to say about it. It was I had like 3 moves at that point, and about 2 of them I botched.
But when you came back through the curtain, I mean, was it the case that you were like, oh man, I can't believe that, I wanted it all to go so well and it didn't pan out the way that I hoped, or were you coming back saying, this is fantastic, I want to do more of this?
Oh, I came back super excited, like, that was awesome, because that was the first time I ever, like, actually wrestled in front of a crowd, and that's all I wanted, was just to experience what it's like to get out of the training stage and to really know what it's like when an audience is watching. So at the end of the day, I was actually really glad that it was the show that I wrestled at, because it wasn't that big, but it was enough to give me a taste, and it was enough where even if I did mess up, it wasn't a big deal. And it left me like wanting more, wanting to improve, and wanting to wrestle in front of people more. And then it also let me know what I needed to work on. So the next day when I went back to training, I knew exactly what I needed to work on, with not only just in the ring move-wise, but gimmick-wise, personality-wise. So now I kind of have more of a sense on, okay, well, I want to try doing this a little bit different, and I can perfect this a little bit more. So I got an insight of what it was really like. So I appreciated everything from that match. I learned a lot. Even though it wasn't that great, I still learned a lot. And even like with... Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go on, sorry.
And even with my friend Mike, he's wrestling now, and I completely lost my train of thought. He's wrestling now, and he actually, when he came with me, and he's just a friend, when he came with me, and he saw me wrestle, that actually made him want to wrestle. So now he's wrestling, and he's like, I thought that was really cool looking back at it now. Like, huh.
So you influenced somebody to take up pro wrestling in your first match.
Yeah, because we were friends in high school, and the best part... Oh, and if you're listening, hi, Mr. Jones, that's his name. And and we went to high school together, and I was like the nerd, the dork, the one that like didn't really have a lot of friends, and everybody picked on me and whatever. And he was like one of the cool kids, but he was always nice to me, so we would like say, hey, what's up? But that was really about it. And then the only thing we would really talk about is wrestling, because we both were fans of wrestling. And I finally just invited him to come to the show with me, because I didn't want to make the drive by myself. And I hope he doesn't mind me putting his stuff out here. But in high school, he used to like drink and smoke weed and just hang out with the bad crew and everything. And then when he saw me wrestle, like, he told me that he wants to start wrestling and he wants to start training. So I gave him like all the tips and, you know, where to start training and everything. And now he's like clean, and he's focused on, you know, health, body, fitness, wrestling. Like, it's just looking back at it now, I'm so glad that we made that trip together, because I think we both made positive changes, like, in our lives from it. So
turning people's lives around from day one.
Yeah. No.
That's pretty impressive. I'm going to give you that. That's pretty impressive. Hey, you mentioned there, I thought it was interesting just that you mentioned about how at school you were like, the nerd or the dork. How do you transition from that to being a pro wrestler as far as your personality is concerned? I mean, when you've got to go out there in front of a paying audience and portray a character and use your face and show out to everybody, I assume that wasn't easy for you.
No, in the beginning it was very hard, just because growing up I've always been very shy, and even now, like, if I don't really know you, and if you're not not that if you're not my friend, but if I don't know you, or if you're, say, fans I'm comfortable with, other wrestlers I'm comfortable with, but if you're just like a regular person that just comes up, hey, how are you, like, try to strike a conversation, I'm very shy and I'm very to myself, even to this day. And I think, especially with growing up with me being bullied and me always being, the ugly duckling, or because especially in elementary and middle school, I got made fun of for either being black or being Asian or mixed in general, because I went to all white schools pretty much. And so it was a tough upbringing, but I think I want to give wrestling 100% credit for letting me be who I truly wanted to be, allowing me to venture out and being like, whenever somebody's like, okay, well, your gimmick, just make it you, just times 100. I'm able to do that. Whether when I'm a heel, I just think, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to act like how I wanted to be when all those kids picked on me in school. And I just become the biggest bitch ever. And apparently it works. When I'm a face, I'm just how I am with my friends, goofy, happy-go-lucky, cheery. So it really helps me bring out, my inner frustrations, especially as a heel, just taking it out. Well, not taking it out on anybody, but just kind of expressing how I wanted to be when I was younger. So I think in the beginning it was very hard, but the more shows I did, and especially forming friendships in the wrestling world, actually making like good friends and people there to help me, and people actually like supporting me and not making fun of me, not picking on me, like that changed my outlook on everything. And because before I wouldn't talk to anybody, like I wouldn't even look above the ground. Like when I walked with my eyes on the ground. That's just because I don't want people to look at me and give me like any funny faces or anything. Like I was just so used to that. And I give wrestling 100% credit to allowing me to be who I truly am inside, rather than keeping it to myself because of fear of what other people's going to think, or fear of what other people's going to make fun of me for. Growing up, I got made fun of a lot for wearing wrestling shirts. I got made fun of because I was a fan of wrestling. Now I can proudly say, yeah, you know what? I'm a fan and I am a wrestler. And it's funny because like even now, all the people that made fun of me in high school, middle school, everything, like now they hit me up on Facebook like, oh my God, look at you. That's so cool. And I'm just like, all right.
I remember you. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay. And it's, I mean, no knock on anybody, but I love when the, I guess, mean girls or the popular jocks in high school are now fat and ugly. And now they're like, oh, that's so cool. You're a wrestler. I always knew you can do it. I was like, yeah, no, you didn't. But I mean, I if it wasn't for wrestling, I'd probably still be the same girl that I was in high school, middle school, just the loner, the introvert, the one that just doesn't interact with anybody. But wrestling definitely brought out like me, and I got to make friends, like real friends. I got to, I met my boyfriend. Everything in wrestling is awesome.
It's funny that you mentioned the word introvert there, because this is something I wanted to bring up, and it might be a little bit contentious, so forgive me with this. When I first saw you, and I think we'll have to skip back a couple of steps after this, but the first time I saw you, and I think the first few times that I saw you, I wasn't sure exactly what to make of you because you're this new face and everything like that, and that's cool. But then I didn't know how I was supposed to feel about you because of the gear that you had. Because you mentioned about being introverted, but your gear when you started out was the complete opposite of introverted. Really, it was very, very. It had a lot of skin showing. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that now, as we've gone on further in the years, there's actually more material in your gear than there was earlier on.
Well, funny enough, I actually, like, in the beginning of my career, probably when you did see me, I don't blame anybody for feeling a certain way towards me, just because, especially like with my gimmick or my gear or something, because I was still testing the waters. I wasn't sure of who I was myself as far as gimmick, as far as what I wanted to go for and what I wanted to portray as. So a lot of the times it was just me testing, okay, let's see if this will work. Let's see if this will work. Playing volleyball for 8 years, I was very used to like short shorts, spandex, sports bra.
That makes sense.
Tight jerseys and stuff. So I definitely felt more comfortable wearing something similar to a volleyball outfit than anything else. Because I've seen, girls, I looked at girls with like skirts and pants and one pieces, all these different types of things. And I just wanted something that I was comfortable in, and that was something similar to a volleyball outfit. So now, like from what it was before with less clothes, where it is with now, I kind of have more of an idea of what I want to portray myself as. And that being said, I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to go. Okay, so I'm just going to flat out say it. So my boobs are fake. So especially with the top part, and even in the beginning of my career, I wanted to show them off. So I was proud of them and I wanted to show them off, but it was still intertwined with the volleyball outfit. So like a sport bra underneath my jersey and then the spandex shorts, and knee pads with knee-high socks. So and with the Taekwondo background, I knew I wanted to kick, so I had to get kick pads. But I think as the years went on, as more training and then more in like time in the ring in front of an audience, I kind of was able to figure out, okay, well, this is not me. I'm going to just start being more myself. Okay, I've been to Japan a couple times. I love the Japanese wrestling style. I love the clothes that they wear, everything that they have. I think I'm going to try to make, I want to be more like this, but with my own flair to it. So in the beginning stages, it was all just trial and error, really.
See, that makes a lot of sense. You talk about the volleyball side of things and the body confidence as well. And I'm not knocking you for wearing what you want to wear. I mean, you're completely free to wear whatever you want. And if you look like you do, why wouldn't you? It's just that. Do you think sometimes that maybe people might get the wrong impression with you when they look at, maybe not necessarily when you wrestle, but when they maybe just look at a photo of you?
Absolutely, I get that conversation from my dad every weekend. But I'm like, I think especially with being so used to being made fun of and just being judged right off the bat because of my ethnicity or what I'm wearing, as far as like, I used to wear boys' clothes and I got made fun of for it. Like I just got made fun of all the time for certain different things, my hair, my clothes, my skin tone. I was too tall. I was whatever. I was just so used to it that I didn't care. Like, it didn't bother me anymore. So even to this day, whenever somebody's like, oh, well, you used to wear this and look at those modeling pictures, it's like, yeah, well, so what?
I suppose if you're so used to people having snap judgments about you based on very little information, you might as well try and make them positive snap judgments,
Yeah, exactly. And even, like, especially being in the wrestling business, you just got to have thick skin. So throughout time, I already had thick skin, but I mean, it's just to the point where I just didn't care what other people thought about me anymore. It was what I felt was comfortable, what I wanted to portray as, and like I just was happy. I was happy. I am happy.
Let's get back to the to the story as we were going there before our little gear sidebar.
Sorry,
it's fine. It's fine. You did your training, your initial training. You said Virginia, but I mean, I think most people who who sort of know anything about you, you know, they kind of associate you with things like Ring of Honor training or CZW training. Was your initial training basically, was it not getting it done for you? Were you not progressing where you wanted to? Did you not get the training that you wanted, that you ended up looking other places, or what happened exactly that you ended up in those places?
Well, one was the fact that I wanted to, like, I've heard of CCW, I've heard of Ring of Honor, so the minute that DJ Hyde invited me to train at CCW and Daisy Hayes invited me to train at Ring of Honor, I was all down for. Like, that was something that I truly wanted, because I felt like that would exceed more experience along with something that I haven't learned yet in the school in Virginia. And something I've actually never told any, or never really talked about on podcasts or anything, was that I don't say this training school's name in Virginia ever, just because basically we had a rough breakup, to say the least, and I'm not the only one. Let's just say that money, like, people were just trying to take money and not really train people. Let's just say that me and other girls had experienced some really sketchy, like, stuff from the guy that ran the school. It just got really, really shady there, and really I just was not feeling it anymore. And aside from the training, like, the training was good. It's just that the guy that owned it, the guy that ran it, was just not a good businessman. And it was just time for me that I learned everything I could, like, fundamentally. And the guys that did train there, like the head trainers, like Bobby Shields and John Kerman, they helped me a great deal. And they were the ones to really teach me, rather than the guy that actually owned the school, because he just came and collected money. Mm-hmm. And it was just to the point where I just felt like I got everything that I needed to move forward. So when I got the invite for CCW and Ring of Honor, I definitely took it, just because I knew they were going to teach me stuff that I was not going to learn there. I knew it was time to advance, and I felt that if anywhere, that would be a place where I could definitely grow. So yeah, like, Ring of Honor and CCW, I'm so glad that I was able to network and able to... honestly, I think if it wasn't for those two schools, like, training there regularly, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
The two schools, were they significantly different? I mean, I haven't been to either of them, but I assume that they are, just as far as the styles that their promotion promotes. I mean, did you learn significantly different things in ROH to CZW, for example?
I want to say I learned two separate different things. For an example, when I was training at CZW and Ring of Honor, CZW would run training, I think it was like Mondays and Thursdays, and Ring of Honor ran trainings like Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So I was like, awesome, I get to train 4 days out of the week. And this was when, like, summer came around again, and this is when I actually transferred to a school closer to home in DC. So I was able to drive up there, and it was probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours, which is nothing for me. So I was like, awesome, I get to train for 4 days out of the week, whatever. But the thing is, CCW, their training is, like, let's say the first hour is like warm-up conditioning, is just getting, warming up your body, and then everything else is, okay, well, what do you want to train? Or we're going to be working on this today, or basically like a free ring type thing, which was awesome, because I got to work on whatever I wanted, or anything that I felt like I needed to work on. I would just tell the trainers, they're like, I feel a little rusty here. Can we probably work on it? Absolutely, let's do it. Whereas Ring of Honor, their style, I noticed, is very similar to the Japanese style. So like the first hour is warm up and conditioning. The second hour is rolling and running and hitting the ropes and stuff like that. The third hour is learning or perfecting like body slams or suplexes, or like a specific move. And then some classes we'd have like an hour of like promo work, and then like the last thing of the day would be, okay, everybody would have matches, and they would perform matches in front of the school. So it was, Ring of Honor was very structured and had like a set schedule on what they were going to do for the day. And that was very similar to, and I'm glad that I got to experience both that and CCW, because not only do I get to the free reign of CCW and working on what I want to work on, but also Ring of Honor with where I'm being put in a schedule. I'm being put to like kind of a boot camp type thing. So training wise, those were the two differences with it, but I love the mixture of both.
And as far as head trainers, I mean, Ring of Honor would have been Delirious and Daisy Hayes, I assume. Was it DJ Hyde was the main guy in CCW, or? Yeah,
DJ, Black G's, and Drew Gulak were the three that I spent a lot of time in the ring with at CCW.
Mm-hmm. I mean, CCW, I mean, when I think of you in CCW, just to go forward to when you started to appear for CCW, you were doing some managing, but you ended up finding yourself in a feud with Greg Axel. And, I mean, you know, that's an interesting feud. We actually, funnily enough, had Cherry Bomb on the show a few episodes ago, and she also had a feud with Greg Axel. So I feel like we're talking about Greg quite a lot here, but, you know, tell us about working those matches. You were very, very early in your career as far as actually performing in the ring, but you were also working a guy, and it's a considerably bigger guy than you, to say the least. And eventually it ended up in a TLC match. You know, we could talk about that. I think it was a 3-match series, and he beat you twice, and then you beat him in the TLC match. Is that correct? I mean, tell us about just that whole thing and how you can work with Greg.
Well, one, I'm glad everybody is talking about Greg because he definitely deserves it. I want to say that if it wasn't for Greg and if it wasn't for DJ pinning this match together, and if it just wasn't, I give Greg a lot of credit for that whole thing. And I think it was really him and CCW that really put my name out there. Mm-hmm. And Greg is by far one of the best, most lovable, cuddly bear ever that I ever met in the world. And I love him so much. He's like a big brother to me. And like, it's so funny because at CCW, I was known for being like a bitch and just being so not white trash, but definitely grungy there. And with Greg, like the first match was, I want to say it was my first yeah, sorry. I'm like, once again, foot in the mouth. How do I say? I was trying to find myself as a heel wrestler. I think that was the first time I was ever really like trying to be super, especially at the CCW crowd where you have no rules and you can pretty much do whatever you want. It was like I get to finally unleash the beast. And so and especially with Adam Cole in my corner, it was so easy just to play off of him. And side note, I love that I was able to manage both CCW and Ring of Honor because I was able to test myself and seeing, okay, I at Ring of Honor, I'm going to be classy yet bitchy. And at CCW, I'm going to be a grudgy and bitchy. So I got to test those two waters pretty much at the same time. And the first match, Greg is by far the easiest person I've ever had to work. Like looking at him, intimidating. Extremely intimidating because I'm the size of his leg. And he came up with these awesome ideas. He would call me like, hey, what do you think about this idea? What do you think about that idea? And honestly, there was moments where I'm like, I don't know, like I'm actually scared. Like I don't want to get hurt. And he took care of me. Like I've never gotten hurt with him. I've never he's just amazing. But the first match, I remember the minute I come out, there is these fans with a cardboard, which I'm pretty sure you guys have seen, a cardboard with me with slanted eyes, like one of those rice hats, and my mouth with the hole cut out of it.
Oh, we've seen this.
Yes. And I thought it took me it was so hard not to laugh and just pop for it, because I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Because I'm like, these guys actually made me. And this actually put effort. This was effort. And I was just so impressed. And like, everyone thought it was like so offensive. And everyone in the back was like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, that was really effed up. I was like, that was awesome. I want a picture with it. But the match itself was, oh my God. I've always dreamed of wrestling a guy, especially as I stated earlier, watching Chyna and Lita able to get in the ring and tangle with the boys. I've always wanted to do something like that. But at that point, a lot of the times when I did see women versus men it was the generic, girl slapping the guy, or one punch for the girl and she's out type thing. Sure. And it was nice that Greg and DJ gave us like the free reign to do whatever, and that I was able to hold my own, in a sense. I was able to hold my own to a 300-pound guy, and he was all open for me throwing him around and kicking him as hard as I could, and able to go back and forth with him. And the first two he won, and finally, and I think I told this to, I don't remember who I told it to, but it was supposed to end at that second match. Like, we were supposed to be done after that second match. But after that second match, we basically went up to DJ and was just like, we need a finale. Like, we need just one final one. Just let us do one more. And he let us do one more. And I think it was either Greg or DJ's idea for the TLC, because even though I trained with CCW and I've seen some of their stuff, I am not a fan of hardcore wrestling. I don't like barbed wires. I don't like thumbtacks, glass, any of that stuff. That's just absolutely not for me. So when they suggested that, I was very hesitant, just because, one, I don't want people to think of me as a hardcore wrestler, because once you do a hardcore match, a lot of people is going to expect you to do more of it, and a lot of companies are going to call you asking you to do more hardcore matches. So I didn't want a majority of my bookings to all of a sudden be, hey, we want you to come out to such and such so you can wrestle in a hardcore match. Like, I just didn't want to be deemed, and no knock to anyone that loves hardcore wrestling and does hardcore wrestling, but I just didn't want to be deemed as a hardcore wrestler. So I was very hesitant when I got that phone call. But I was able to talk to Greg one-on-one, and he just told me, like, I'm going to take care of you. Like, don't worry. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with. Like, you're not going to get hurt. I'm not going to let you get hurt. I'm going to take care of you. And to this day, I trust Greg with my life. And in the TLC match, he took a lot of shit. He took a lot. And he actually got a concussion in that match, protecting me, which, like, still, I can't even explain the feeling of it, to know that he would put himself on the line to make sure that I didn't get hurt. And he still finished the match being concussed, which I thought was incredible.
Taking a firebomb through a table, if I remember.
Yeah, that was the last move, but he got his concussion when I set up the table on the outside, and we were like going back and forth on the top of like the buckles or whatever, and we fell from the top of the buckle to the outside through the table, and I don't know if you can see, but my body kind of went a little higher than expected, and then I landed on his head, and he hit his head from the top of the buckle to the floor, and that's how he got a concussion. And he held on to me to make sure that I did not I did not fall on the floor. He basically made me land on him to make sure that I didn't land on the floor. And I thought that was probably like the most powerful thing that I've ever experienced, like from especially care from a wrestler. And because of that, like from that feud, I consider him a really good friend. And so he finished the match. And after the match, like I cut a promo, and of course DJ comes out and power bombs me for I don't freaking know why. and cut a promo, and I don't remember what I said. No, I do remember. It was basically like, I want to thank you, Greg, for treating me like a wrestler and not a female, or something like that. And I started crying, and it was like that was real emotion, because I think that those 3 matches with him, one, I felt that it really skyrocketed me, and I felt that it was all because of him. And I'm glad that now he's getting the credibility, not only because before that he was only known as like a comedy worker. Mm-hmm. He only did comedy stuff with like a couple moves here and there, but it also showcased him to actually be able to hang and do some shit. And I'm glad that now people are, well, even after that, like people started talking about him more, talking about the company more. So I really felt that he made my mark for who I am, or who I became. And yeah, I think those 3 matches will always be like the most memorable. Like, it would be a highlight of my career, probably for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. Hey, I just thought as you were talking there, I just want to jump right forward, just completely out of the sort of the narrative that we were talking about there. But you mentioned DJ Hyde a few times there in passing, and how helpful he was in your career early and so on. And obviously DJ Hyde's now very involved was the owner of WSU, and WSU is very closely tied with CZW now. You went to WSU a couple of weeks ago and wrestled Jessica Havoc in that show. But I just wanted to mention to you, I'm sure it hasn't escaped you notice, you're on social media and so on, I'm sure it hasn't escaped you notice that there were a couple of things on the show that seemed to cause controversy or cause a bit of outrage amongst online fans, including DJ Hyde's mention of a BJ club as he tried to intimidate Jessica Havoc. He was having none of it. Some people seem to take this very negatively. They thought it was a really negative stereotype and blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, you're someone who knows DJ Hyde very well. You're someone who's known him for years. And every time we've ever heard of him on the show, whether it's through you, whether it's through Cherry Bomb, whether it's through Kimberly, everybody's got nice things to say about him. Everybody says about how positive he is about women in wrestling, etc., etc., etc. The fact that he owns WSU should be enough to point that out. But, I mean, what was your take on the sort of the mini storm in a teacup a couple of weeks ago at WSU?
Well, the funny thing is, that weekend, I forgot my phone at home. So
you saw nothing about this until
I had no idea what was going on. I had no, when I was in the back, I heard him say it, but I'm so, DJ and I are so cool that we talk to each other about anything, and whenever he talks about, BJs or dicks or whatever, I'm just like, okay, it's DJ, whatever. So I heard, I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And I honestly, I didn't know anything that was going on online because I couldn't access the internet. But I did know that Jessica was very upset. After everything, she was very upset. And DJ is really cool. To me, it was just, I felt like, okay, that's DJ, but I don't know. I think by the time I got home and was able to check my phone, it was, I guess because it was like a day or two later, I didn't even see anything. Yeah, so
I think it's just, I guess people have difficulty separating DJ Hyde, the wrestling character, from DJ Hyde, the promoter,
Well, it's also
the fact he's a heel. He's going to get his comeuppance eventually, so...
Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, it's just who you are times 100. So, I mean, granted, DJ is a businessman and he can be a dick, but in the ring, he's just that times 100, and he's just trying to do what he can to make his company succeed, make us succeed, and he's just doing what he can to pit himself plus other people over. So, I can't be mad at him for that.
No, fine. It's just it just occurred to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was dumb and forgot my phone.
If maybe it was DJ, but if not DJ, who was the most influential person in your early career?
Sarah Del Rey.
Yeah?
For sure. Because my second match ever in my career was with her.
Wow.
And yeah, it was scary because when I got that text message, like, because these guys that I trained with, they were running their first show and they said, we know what you're capable of. You're going to be wrestling Sarah Del Rey. And I knew who she was, so I was freaking out, scared, so nervous. And the funny thing is, since that match, up until, like, she started working for WWE, I regularly worked her, like, pretty much every, like, 2 months or so. Like, I worked her a lot. And if I didn't work her, I seen her at shows. So I was able to communicate with her and, get advice. And especially after matches, still get advice, tips. So ever since, like, even that first match with her, my second match in, I got all this advice from her, all these critiques, constructive criticism, a lot of stuff from her that I felt that really helped me form what I am today. And especially not only just having that one match, but having consistent matches with her so she can continue to tell me what I needed to work on, what I need to stick with, advice just on the side here and there, for a couple years. So I think Sarah really played a huge role.
I mean, would it be fair to say that you also got a lot of experience as to your wrestling style and who you are by your sort of semi-regular trips to Japan that you started in 2011?
Yes, that too, because I've always been a fan of Japanese wrestling. Like, aside from WWE, I've always, like, my main goal was to wrestle in Japan. And to this day, I've done that 7 times now. And every time I always learn something new, meet somebody new, and even especially when I stay for longer periods of times, for like a month to 3 months, I'm able to train with them regularly and experience just the shows and their culture, just everything. I feel that Japan also gave me a new stepping stone into my career and helped me form and really helped me identify who I wanted to be and what I wanted to bring in wrestling. Because a lot of people or a lot of wrestlers are like, oh, Japanese style is awesome, I'm going to try to do it like that, but they won't actually really know what it's like until they train there. And I've been blessed to have trained there multiple times for, I want to say, at least a year and some change total. And I got to train with, like, Taka Michinoku. I got to work a show with Tajiri and work basically one of his girls, Siri, and he came to me after the match and loved it. And this was in a boxing ring, so I couldn't do 90% of the stuff that I did. And I got to work Manami Toyota, like all these different Hiroya Matsumoto. Like, I got to work all these different girls and learn so much from every single one of them that Japan was definitely another highlight in my career. Absolutely.
You really got thrown in at the deep end, though. Like, I mean, you mentioned them there already, but I mean, I was looking at some of your results earlier, and unless there's anything missing, I think the first match you had in Japan for Reina was against Hiroya Matsumoto in a singles, and then your second match was in a tag match, and on the opposite side of the ring was Manami Toyota.
Yeah, they definitely.
Did this blow your mind? I mean, how do you cope with the pressure of that? Are you just chill and thinking, okay, this is a cool opportunity, or are you inside? Are you like, yes?
Oh yeah, on the inside, I definitely was marking out. Since coming to Japan, I don't think they really. Well, of course, nobody really knew who I was at that point. Even still now, like, I don't consider myself a celebrity or anything. But, like, I think the minute I came and the booker that saw me, I'm bigger compared to other girls there. Like, over there, I'm considered, quote unquote, a giant. And I'm only
so is Hiroya Matsumoto as well. She's considered one of the big girls, which is always amazing.
Yeah.
To me.
And she's not even big or anything.
No.
Not that it's bad or anything, but, like, the minute they saw me and saw how tall I really was and how, I guess, muscular I really was or whatever, they wanted to pit me in with all these big wrestlers, Matsumoto, Toyota. I'm trying to think. I can't even remember anybody. But, yeah, like, and in my head, I'm like, okay, well, they clearly just want to put me in these matches because they want to beat me up. Um, they want to see if I'm going to quit, and they're basically going to test me. But they were very professional, and granted, it was definitely different compared to American style. Like I felt everything was like strong style. Especially my first match with Matsumoto was a definitely like a big shocker, because I was just like, wow, they're legit, but it's awesome. I loved it. And even though like in Japan, at this point, I was still losing pretty much every match in America. And Japan, they'd actually let me win some, so I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, like it was very intimidating to be like, they wouldn't even tell us who we were wrestling until like the week before or something. With Reina, they're very last minute, to say the least. They would put everything together like a week or two before, and whereas in America, you'd have like a month, 2 months to really prepare. But there, it's only like a week, 2 weeks. So I didn't even know who I'd be working until the week before the show. So, and the funny thing is when the card would come out, it would all be in Japanese. So I am able to identify my name in Japanese now. So I would just like highlight and do the Google Translate or whatever just to see who I'm working. And there's been a couple times, like especially with Toyota, I'm like, this is clearly a typo. Like, this is not right. I don't get it. So I had to like ask Aoi or Aki, like, what is this? And they would confirm. So it was very intimidating. In a sense, I was kind of in denial, especially with first being over there. It's like, yeah, right. They're not going to put me in the ring with them. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, it was...
How's your Japanese now? Have you picked up any of it? Could you look at a card now and could you tell me who's wrestling on it? Or
Well, now I haven't been to Japan in about a year, so my Japanese is slowly, sadly deteriorating. So I used to know like enough to travel enough to get by, and I wasn't able to read like words or anything, but I can pinpoint like certain letters, to say the least.
right.
But now, yeah, it's bad.
What about the whole, I mean, you kind of talked about how you really love the Japanese culture, and obviously you have your half Korean background as well. I mean, did you find it easy to go to Japan and settle in? Some people don't. Some people find it really hard. It's a real culture shock. Did you find it easy, or?
I thought it was just like home, to be honest.
Okay.
My mom is Korean, and in her house, she tries to keep it very traditional, very Korean. Everything she does, like she goes to a Korean church. She cooks Korean dinners. She's pretty much friends only with Koreans. And where we lived in Virginia was basically everywhere, like it was a very highly populated with Koreans. So I felt that going over there, and I've also visited Korea too, so it wasn't anything really too abnormal for me. I adapted very well. I think the only thing that really shocked me was the food portions was incredibly small, and I was highly disappointed just because I would see like an amazing dish on a menu and it would be like the size of my fist. I'm like, what the hell is this? But like, so the food portions really kind of was a shocker. And the fact that as a volleyball player, being 5'7", I'm considered average to below average for height. Like they want like 6 foot players on the team. So I've always been used to being like kind of the smaller girls. And then going to Japan, a lot of people would look at me, and a lot of the Japanese would just like, you could tell they're looking at you and thinking about something in their head, and comes to find out it's just because I was towering over everybody, even the men, which I thought was crazy. So the fact that like I was taller than everybody, or considered big, as we already accomplished, and like the food, and I also experienced a little bit of racism there too. But like I said earlier, from like my experience as a child, it didn't bother me. It actually made me snappy, which is bad. But yeah, it wasn't that bad. I enjoyed it. I felt like it was easy for me.
Of all the Joshis that you fought in Japan, the other sort of thing that occurs to me is in Shimmer, you seem to be, almost every Joshi that comes across you seem to have like a big one-on-one match with them as well. Again, I assume that's because you have your experience there, and Dave thinks that you can put together a good match with this girl. who's been your favorite Joshi competitor to wrestle? Is there somebody that you really sort of feel like hand in glove, this is the person that works best with me?
Oh man. Do I have to pick one?
Ideally, but you know, if you want to sit on the fence, you can sit on the fence.
Feel free to be diplomatic with this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's three right off the bat that I feel very like we mesh very well with each other in both Japan and in Shimmer, where Matsumoto is definitely one. Mm-hmm. Siri is another one, and Hikaru Shida is the third one. And I can't pick one out of those three because I feel like each one of them, our matches just gelled so well together. And like Shida, I've always been a fan of her since Ice Ribbon, and finally being able to wrestle her on her debut was phenomenal. And putting the match together with her was so easy, and I just felt that we just worked hand and foot together. Siri, in the Philippines, like I said earlier, we wrestled in a boxing ring where the ropes were actual rope. So we couldn't spring. We tried our best not to even hit the ropes. Didn't do anything. And I was a heel anyway, so I wasn't going to be flying anytime soon. So the fact that we had that handicap and we still had a really good match, I really want to see what we can do in an actual ring. And Matsumoto, just having 2-3 matches with her, like, and each one of them becoming better than the last one, those three are definitely the three Joshi girls that I feel that we can just kill it every time.
It seems like having a little bit of adversity kind of works for you with this kind of adapt and overcome strategy, because you hurt your knee in April, which meant that you missed Shimmer 62, and then the following week in Berwyn, a lot of the focus of the matches was on your knee as well, and that kind of made you change your style, didn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure, because how do I say? I hurt my knee doing the lion salt, and I tweaked it. Like I kind of hyperextended it, but not front to back or back to front, but side to side. Yeah, so I tweaked it that way, and I was actually supposed to be wrestling Shida and on the Shimmer in New Orleans, but because that happened, it was Evie, which I thought was still a really good match, and so yeah, I was going to take a week off, give my knee some time to heal, don't even go to the gym, don't do nothing with my knee. So by the time Shimmer rolls around the next weekend, my knee was about 70 to 75%. And I knew, like, the minute I got on the plane to go to, like, when I got on the plane and sat down and then had to stand back up in 2 hours after being in a sitting position, my knee was already aching. So I knew that there is no way that I am going to fly. There's no way that I can really do the stuff that I usually do, which is why I'm glad I was able to train at CCW, Ring of Honor, Japan, train at all these different places, because I got to learn a little bit of everything. So if I can't fly, well, at least I have power. If I don't have power, well, at least I have speed. So all these different things that I can fall back on. And at Shimmer, it was very hard because it was hard for me to even kick, because my right knee was the one that was messed up, and I kick with my right knee. That's my strongest leg is my right leg, and I couldn't even really kick with that leg just because it put so much pressure on my knee. So all I really had was strength. Like I couldn't even run that much, but I felt that even with that handicap, I was able to work around it. And the people that I was in the ring with were so understanding and was so easy to work with too, because they refused to do anything that would really put strain on my knee. And I thought it was, well, hell, my knee's hurt. Let's just work on my knee all weekend. Be a good story anyway. So we just kept that ball and just kept it rolling. And
well, that's the funny thing about it. Not to cut you off, but that made the matches all the more dramatic. It was like it obviously sucked for you to a certain extent, but like, you know, from someone who was watching it from ringside, I really enjoyed your stuff at Shimmer this year because it had that underlying story. it is. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say here about whether I'm trying to say that I'm pleased you hurt your knee before Shimmer because it really helped. But
well, that's a dangerous statement.
You know what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to be nice, but it's just obviously
I understand.
Come from a bad place. You know?
I am glad that it did happen though, just because it, like, I was talking to Mercedes when we were having our match, and I'm actually glad that this happened just because she told me, like, well, now we have to take away your strongest points and work on your weaker points. Whereas you're used to flying, you're used to kicking, and you're used to doing all this. Now this is a perfect time to work on the stuff that you need to work on, rather than being comfortable with what you know. So I felt that I definitely did that all weekend. And my knee was really hurt that weekend, so half of the selling was real.
Well, that helps to a certain extent, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that it definitely, once again, it was another test that I thought that I really needed, because I was flying all over the place. I was kicking everybody, but I've never actually was disabled to the point where I had to do something else. I've always trained and I've always used a little bit here and there in matches, but to solely be concentrated on my weaknesses and solely depend on them, it was a good test to have.
One of those matches this past April was actually a Shimmer Championship match, your first opportunity at that belt. And it's kind of funny because, again, before we even called you, Lee and I were kind of talking about some of the things we were going to mention to you. And the fact that, you used to have the most awful win-loss record in Shimmer for the longest time.
Oh, God.
I think at one point you were like 0-9, and I think, your first match that you won was, I think, Davina Rose's last match in Shimmer. I think it was maybe her farewell weekend or something. But then you were back to losing for another few more matches. And it wasn't really until last year that you started to actually win matches. It's kind of funny, like, you've gone right from literally the sparkle and the opening matches, to, the person that lost every time, to being somebody that's in a main event and actually challenging for the championship. I mean, that's got to be really good for you, just to see that progression for yourself.
Oh, for sure. I've always anything I do, I don't want it to be given to me. I don't want to just be, hey, here you go. Like, I want to work for it. Like, I want to work for the position that I'm in now. I want to work for the name that I have now. I absolutely hate seeing, like, for just an example, like, if a pretty girl, oh, well, she's pretty, let's put the belt on her. Like, I want to actually work for a belt. I want a belt to be worth something to work for it. Like, I'm very glad that I started from the very bottom in Sparkle, and I did suck. I'm not even gonna lie, I sucked in Sparkle, and I sucked. I'm glad that I was able to keep losing, because I learned every single time that I did. I never really, I didn't care about a win-loss record. I actually didn't know what my win-loss record was until you guys told me, and I was like, damn, well, then.
Yeah, it wasn't something I really thought about either for like a few sets of shows. Then it was like, Mia Yim never wins. And then it was like at one point somebody looked and went, holy crap, she's like 0-7.
I don't even keep track, but knowing that, I was like, well, it's nice. It's very nice to look back now and know that I was 0-7. I was the underdog. I started in Sparkle, and now Dave wants me to wrestle, Joshi girls. He's given me a title match, which I honestly thought would never happen to me unless it was a fluke. Like, I never thought that I would be even getting an opportunity for the belt. So, and I also heard Dave in a podcast talking about that weekend, about my knee and all the nice stuff that he said about me. And it really made me feel good about my worth ethic and my drive and determination. Cause I just want to show people, like, if you really work hard and if you stick through all the, crap and pay your dues, it's going to pay off. And even though, like, I don't have a belt now, which is completely fine, like, it's nice to know that Dave's, at least I'm wanted at Shimmer. Like, at least I'm able to wrestle at Shimmer and people kind of know who I am. Like, it's nice to just feel that way, to know that everything that I have now, it's because I earned it, not because I was given because I am pretty or because I'm skinny or whatever the fact is.
Let me ask you something. As far as, because you said about, when you started, you said, you thought you sucked, and you said that, it took a while for you to determine who Mia Yim, the wrestler, was, either both as far as look is concerned and as far as style is concerned, etc., etc., etc. We thought that a switch kind of flicked for you, not the most recent set of Shimmer tapings, but the Shimmer tapings before then. That was, to me, that was the set of shows where you really sort of seemed to take it to another level. You seemed to, maybe slow down some of your high flying and make it mean a little bit more. And you had just a bunch of great matches that weekend. I remember you had a match with Melanie Cruz, for example. It was 1,000,000 times better than any right. And it just seems, we like Melanie Cruz, but it was still 1,000,000 times better than it had any right to be. I think it was a second match on the show as well. It was something that you wouldn't have expected to be that good. And I think it was the best match in the volume.
Wow.
Is that a fair thing for us to say? I mean, did something flick in your head? Did everything sort of come into place? Sort of maybe late last year, where you kind of thought, okay, now I've got it. Now I know what I'm doing.
Yes, I got hurt.
All right. So okay.
Yeah, and I give Mercedes Martinez a lot of credit too, because every time I saw her at Shine, she would come up to me like, "Wrestle smart, just wrestle smart," because I'd always be flying all over the place and doing all the moves that I've known, or all the moves that I have. I would do it in one match rather than saving it for when it really matters. Mm-hmm. And then, for an example, I used to do suicide dives every match, and then eventually I did a suicide and I ate brick, and
probably nobody cared.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But it was just a lot of things. I'd look back, especially if after I messed up the suicide dive, or when I hurt my elbow doing a 450 on a messed up ring and stuff like that. Looking back at it, I was just I just wanted to do everything at once, whereas doing it where it matters. And now it hurts to get out of bed. Now my elbow is messed up. My knees are messed up. You know what? Let's kind of put psychology into it now. Let's think about this match first. And especially with Mercedes would keep telling me you need to she would lecture me. Her and April Hunter would lecture me you need to wrestle smart. You're talented, you can do all the stuff, but you just need to wrestle smart because you're not going to have a long career. And that, knowing the fact that if I continued doing what I was doing, I wouldn't have a long career, kind of scared me. And it was to the point where I just felt like I was just doing the same thing every time. And at Shimmer, I just, how do I explain? It was nice to not having, especially with what I, being zero and whatever, and especially after hurting Mia Svensson and stuff like that, I just wanted to do, I thought about the fans and what would really, the story, how the story would come off. I started thinking about the story, psychology. Okay, well, this high-flying move, let's save that for the very end. And I walked out with no injuries. Nobody that I wrestled got hurt, and that's priority for me. And especially after doing the same thing for, however many years, it was finally you know what? Let's try something different.
That Mercedes Martinez knows what she's talking about, doesn't she?
She really does. She is a great mentor. Fantastic. She's like my mom. She's awesome. So she's always been telling me since the first time I met her, just wrestle smart, man. You're young, you got to wrestle smart. She's very, very intelligent.
You get some points though where she says wrestle smart. You think, okay, I'm wrestling smartly, and then you come back and she says, you could probably wrestle a bit smarter than that, and you kind of think, okay, maybe that wasn't what she meant, or maybe I didn't apply it as much as she was probably intending me to.
Yeah, and especially with the last tapings where I actually got to wrestle her, and since I did hurt my knee, this is where she actually applied, okay, well, now you can't do all the stuff that you wanted to do. Now we got to work around it. We got to figure it out. So I think actually, one, I wrestled her at Shimmer, which with my knee messed up, which helped out. And then I wrestled her in Shine, which I thought was probably one of my favorite matches. Like, still, she's just so smart as a wrestler, just psychology wise, everything. So even at that Shine, and I think wrestling for Shine too helped me really structure what I am and what I want to accomplish in wrestling wise, like move wise. So I think wrestling regularly for Shine every month helps out too.
Let's talk about Shine, actually. We're going long in this podcast, by the way, everybody, just so you know.
Sorry.
No, that's cool. We still got stuff we want to talk about, though. But let's take a chance and let's talk about Shine now. Shine's been fantastic for you because obviously it's local. There's no travel to it, and you get to wrestle with a bunch of people that you know, especially with Leva, you get to wrestle with essentially your sister.
Yeah,
I mean, that's got to be just heaven.
Oh my goodness! Like the fact that it's really close and that everybody is around here. We get to we train at the 3D school. If we, as a tag team, if we need to work on something, we'll just go to the 3D school. And I think the tag team between Leva and I really, really helped me develop my character and to help me, because I am not even gonna lie, my promos suck and they still do to this day. But I get stage fright, so talking in front of a camera with a mic is really like scary to me, and being able to cut promos with her helped me a lot. She's actually helped me with promo work. Her and her boyfriend Cruz helped me with promos. We were able to cosplay too, which was allowing me to work on a different character to try to, I guess, like in a sense, kind of improv. Like, okay, well, we're going to be this character this week, and then we're going to be this character next week, and vice versa. So it was really cool to team with her, to just try something completely different as far as character-wise, because she's the cosplayer, the comedy worker, and me, I'm, the serious wrestler. So mixing us two, I think we both learn from each other. And we, as far as me, I am very new to tag team wrestling, and I still am. So I got to learn a little bit more, like dabble in tag team wrestling too. So I think the tag team between Leva and I was very beneficial, at least to me, coming from me. It was beneficial to me as far as character-wise, personality-wise, promos. I think Shine's awesome. And even like the single stuff, like Sal and Lexi would give me opportunities that wouldn't really come on a whim. Like me and Evilise wrestled numerous times. I've wrestled Mercedes. I'm trying to think if I wrestled Mercedes once before that Shine match. And it was like a tournament match, which we put, we had like 5 minutes to put the match together. So we actually had an actual match at Shine, and all these different women, like even Rain. I've never wrestled Rain. I wrestled her in the tournament, which was cool.
In the tournament finals as well.
Yeah, at the finals. So I got to wrestle like all these different, Jessica Havoc. I think it was the first time I ever worked Jessica Havoc was at Shine. So I got to work all these different new girls, one-on-one too. So I got to perfect and craft me as a singles wrestler, along with dabbling in tag team and getting a sense of what that's like, along with gimmick wise with Leva and her cosplay.
One thing I'll say about the Lucha Sisters, and I think it says a lot to how much people think of you and Leva, both separately and together, I guess, but when you guys won the tag team titles, there was such an outpouring of congratulations and I'm so happy for Mia and Leva, etc., etc. When we were covering the show live and we were putting up, the results, we had a screen cap, I think, of you two with the belts, and, we just put it up and all of a sudden just retweet after retweet after retweet. Everybody's going so happy for them. I mean, that's got to be cool. I mean, were you aware that, just simple fact of getting those tag titles, you had such a big outpouring of positivity towards you?
I couldn't even, I'm getting like goosebumps just thinking about that night, because I've never had an actual, no knock on any other belts, but I've never had like an actual reputable, super big belt that everyone knew about. And especially since this was like the first new tag team belt of Shine, and it was the first, whoever won was the first champs ever. And I didn't know that we were going to be winning. I love Sal, but Sal changes his mind a lot. So I know he told me like 2 weeks before, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Because in my head, I'm like, Allysin Kay and Taylor Made, they're like over. SNS is over. I'm like, we're the underdogs. There's no way we're going to be getting the belts. And Leva and I would text, and we'll just be like, yeah, it's going to be fun. Let's just have fun with it. There's, Sal's going to change his mind. It's not going to happen for us. We're just funny and goofy girls. And then we finally go up there, and we still didn't believe it. Like, we weren't going to believe it until we actually got it. And when we actually got it, was like the reactions on our faces was real. And I think I speak for Leva too. Like, it was a lot of hard work from both of us, and we finally got something out of it. Like, I mean, we both have been giving really good opportunities as singles, but now, especially as a tag, we finally got the belts out of, I believe that we were the underdogs, and I'm sure a lot of people was just like, oh yeah, the Lucha Sisters versus Allysin and Taylor and SNS and this and that. Yeah, I don't even think we were like even a thought in anybody's minds. And I felt that way too. I was just like, we rarely tag. Like, this is our first time really tagging, and there's no way that, we're actually going to go far with this or anything. But it was really, it felt like being on cloud nine. Like, both Leva and I, when we were celebrating, like, I think she ripped her shirt. I didn't even know she was strong enough to rip her shirt. Like, I think that was real. Like, she was just, ugh. And then she started dancing. I've never seen Leva dance like that before. So that's how I knew that we were like, yeah,
This is party time.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really cool.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I'd absolutely agree with. I think regardless of anything else, you can tell that you two, when you're teaming together, are having the time of your lives doing it.
Oh yeah, that's what we try to do every time, especially with her. Like, I know as a singles, I'm always like serious and all right, let's try to kick some ass. But then with her, she's just trying to have fun. I'm like, all right, well, you know what? Let's just have fun out there. We're dressed up as Go-Go and the bride. So
that was
let's
awesome.
Yeah, it was.
That was cool.
let's just play with it.
When you're tag teaming like that, and you are a little bit more sort of free to do things that you wanted to do that you may not necessarily do as a single, do you find that a bit more liberating, or is it a case of, oh God, there are so many options available to me here, I'm not sure which one to choose?
It was definitely the second option for me, because when Leva and I got together because of our boyfriends, they're a tag team, and I always, like, Leva and I was always joke with each other, like, yeah, that'd be really cool if we were a tag team. And the fact that, when they finally gave us that opportunity, we're like, now what? And especially with her, she had a million ideas. Like, she's the one that comes up with the majority of the ideas, and I just follow. She makes the gear, I just wear it. For an example, with Go-Go and the Bride, she made my weapon. I just swing it. So she's legit cosplay, and I just follow her tail. I think that when we finally had the opportunity to tag, there was just so many options that we wanted to do that we had to really be specific on, okay, well, we'll save this for next month because we're going to do this month. Like, she wanted, when we did X-Men I don't even know anything about X-Men. What was I? I was Blink, and she was
Warpath, I believe.
Yeah, yes. Funny thing, and if she's listening, she'll probably laugh at this. I keep calling her Warhammer. I have no idea why, but Warpath. So yeah, we were that, and she specifically was like, we should definitely do X-Men because it's coming out next weekend. Da, 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 da. I was like,
That's attention to detail that I can appreciate. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, whatever you want to do. So it was really cool, but so many different options and choices that we wanted to do that we really had to organize and schedule exactly what, because of certain, we did X-Men because the movie just came out and different things like that. So it was awesome, but slightly overwhelming to pick what to do.
Awesome. I'm sort of loath to go back to serious business now, but I've got some serious business I want to talk about. Let's talk about AIW. You may know what I'm going to say here. I would like to ask you about the time Girls Night Out 5. And we've had Allysin Kay on the show, and she's talked about her side of it. You can go back and listen to the podcast about that. But just give us your recollections of the night that you kicked her nose off her face.
What did she say?
I don't remember, but it was. I seem to remember we even talked to John Thorne about it as well. I remember them saying about how they took pictures of it before she went to hospital and so on. She was all fine about it. I mean, it is what it is. But I'm just interested in your thoughts at the time when you realized, holy shit, I bloodied up her nose.
Well, this was the first time I've ever worked Allysin, and she's super cool. I love her to death now. And even before, I thought she was really cool. She was just so scary looking.
So you didn't know what she was going to be like?
Yes.
You thought she might legit stab you afterwards?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And her best friend was Jessica Havoc. I was, I thought that they were going to come at my house and really kill me or something. But she was super cool. It was all just miscommunications because we were brawling on the outside, and we were, usually when we brawl, it's just, all right, well, we're just going to wing it. So I kicked her a couple times against a pole, and then I told her to duck. And as she ducked, I went up to kick. And I think as she was ducking and my kick was coming up, she was going down, and my knee just perfectly met her nose, and that happened. And I think if you watch the video back after it happened, there was a moment where I didn't know what to do.
Oh, I think that went for both of you. Yeah, there was a moment where it was like, oh shit, and then I can't remember who it was, but somebody sort of just started moving on with things. But there was certainly a moment where it was like, oh.
Yeah, so after that happened, I threw her in the ring, and then I just went for a pin. I just told her, stay down, because I saw the blood, and that really freaked me out. And I knew it was broken. So when I pinned her, stay down, she kicked out. I was like, what the hell? So I pinned her again, and she kicked out. She said, no, keep going. And I thought I was delusional. I was like, she's really trying to go. So I pinned her one more time, and she kicked out again. I was like, well, shit. Guess we're going to keep going. And she,
nice.
Yeah, and she finished the match. And one, she's tough as hell for that. And I think after that, I hate whenever, and it doesn't happen often, but whenever I hurt somebody, I feel so bad and guilty that I think I started crying after the match, and I was so sorry. And she was laughing in the back, and that's when I knew, I'm like, this girl is crazy. She's gonna kill me.
The thing is, though, I mean, she admits this herself, and she told us about it. But I mean, that made her career in AIW, and even further afield. I mean, that was the match that got her noticed.
Oh,
that was the thing, because everybody was talking about it. Did you see the picture of Allysin Kay's nose? And everybody was like, oh. But it turned out to be a positive thing for her. I mean, I know at the time it was anything but positive, but I think, she knows that blood, that accidental breakage, ended up making that feud and making her career.
And in fairness, it wasn't going to get any more broken.
I like the instincts. The instincts of Allysin Kay's thinking, you know what, my nose is a mess. It's not going to get any more broken. I may as well make this look good.
Yeah, this is clearly money.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's good to hear. I think, I'm not happy that it happened, but
I'm sure she's not either, but,
I think that incident really, brought us together as friends. Because even now, to this day, whenever we are, wrestling each other or something, I would mention her nose. And it would just be, an inside joke for us. And, I think now, if it wasn't for that, I think we would have just been a hey, how are you basis. Now, we would text each other. We would just, we talk about, what's the name of that show? Workaholics. We'll just text each other about Workaholics and stuff. So I think, we really were bonded from that.
I imagine so.
Well, technically, you became like Mick Foley and Terry Funk then.
I guess so.
You can decide which one's which.
Well, she's crazy, so I'm going to say she's... I don't know. Yeah. I can't even pick.
I can say both Terry and Mick are pretty crazy.
I was about to say. I can't even pick.
I mean, that match then led into a feud, as well it should. You had an unsanctioned match after that where I remember she took a swing at you with a machete during the match.
Yep, that was scary.
I bet it was. And then that went on to lead to a cage match in the infamous pink AIW cage.
Mm-hmm. I've never been in a cage match before, so like a majority of these special matches and stuff, I've probably never ever been in one before. So it was all just like I followed Allysin, like even the finish. That was so scary because I just wanted to make sure that she did not fall. So I don't know if you saw a picture, but I like grabbed onto her bra to make sure she didn't fall.
Oh yeah, no, we talked about that with her. I mean, because what she had to do was she had to throw herself backwards over the top of the cage.
Yeah,
and you know, if you look closely, there's like a bunch of guys underneath her just in case. But even still, that was crazy. So I mean, from your perspective, how worried were you that wasn't going to come off? Because it came off perfectly.
When she asked me about it in the back, I was very hesitant because she gave me the idea. Because she gave me that move the match before. She's like, "Hey, do you remember this submission I gave you?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, what do you think about doing it over the cage?" I'm thinking like actually on top of the cage, not over it. I was like, you know, it might look okay. She's like, "No, I want to go over it. Like, I'm on one side, you're on the other." And then I said no. There has been, like, she asked me a couple times. I said no. And she finally comes up and she's like, "I got a couple guys that are going to be coming outside the cage. Like, they'll be under me just in case. Like, trust me, I got it. I was like, I said no because I just didn't want her to get hurt again. I'd feel like the worst person in the world if she got hurt again by me. But she was so confident that I was like, okay, I don't know how it's gonna turn out to be, because when I pictured it to be like, sloppy, whatever. And then finally when we did it, I was like, oh my god, this looks insane. And I'm looking down at her and I'm holding onto her bra to make sure that she doesn't fall, because I'll be damned if she fell. So I'm trying to hold on to her and trying to sell, and then I have to milk it before I tap. So I'm like 2 seconds feels like 2 minutes. And she finally looks at me and gives me like a nod, and I tap. And then even after I tap, I didn't want to let her go because she was going to like flip over onto the boys. I was like, I'm not letting you go. And she just said, okay, just let go. Just go. I got it. And then she just flipped over like a monkey. I'm like, oh shit. But yeah, when she first came up with the idea, I thought she was ludicrous. I thought that was impossible.
Pretty much was ludicrous, but it came off. I mean, that's often the case in wrestling with the really memorable things. They're absolutely ludicrous, and you should probably never try it again. But
yep.
on that one occasion, it worked out perfectly well.
Yeah, because I did the cage, and then the one before we did like a kind of hardcore match, and this was after my whole thing with Greg too. So after the cage, I was just like, all right, no more hardcore stuff for me for a long time. But I was just glad that she was okay.
Wow, it's quite the thing. And you were back in AIW earlier on this year. I had a chance to watch your match with Athena from earlier this year. That's just occurred to me right now how much I love that match, because it was just so fast. It was so it was so incredible to watch. But I know that Athena literally just arrived in the building.
Yeah, we had like 20 minutes because my flight got delayed. Well, actually, it didn't get delayed. We were like halfway to Ohio, and then we had to turn around and go back to Newark because something like the defrost on the wings was not working. So we had to go back and fix the plane or whatever. So like I was delayed. She was delayed. She was, of course, more delayed than me because she came right after, like, basically that section in between the first and the second taping, like during that middle
interview, let's call it.
Yes. Yeah. She came in during there, and then she immediately comes to me, and then I go with her. So as she's changing, we're trying to figure some stuff out. And thankfully, we talked about it like a couple days before just to get some ideas. So we already had some ideas. So we just went on that, and went over some, whatever stuff that we were uncomfortable with, we went over in the ring, like, real quick. And then we were the first match on the second taping. So we're like, well, let's just do it. So I don't even remember anything from that match. I don't remember a thing. I don't know how we got through that match and without messing up or anything. But yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I still haven't watched it back, so.
I recommend it. I'll put it like that. So, cool. All right, look, we've gone a long time in this podcast. We've gone much longer than we thought we were going to go. But you know what? We're not going to let you go until we have our new favorite segment on the show. We've got to try and main event with this now. So this better be a good one. But it's our wacky road trip story. I've asked you to think of the best road trip story you've got, and I'm just going to let you go with it. Tell us your best story. Okay, well, this, like I told you earlier, this is the only one that I can remember because I take a lot of kicks and bumps to the head, so I don't really remember a lot of stuff. But what I thought of was one time for Ring of Honor, I think we were driving, I don't even remember where we were driving, but I think it was Chicago. But we took a van, and it's normally, I think it was me, and I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this, but I remember for sure it was Robert Evans because this is pretty much about him. Me, Adam Cole, Veda Scott. I think Delirious was with us too, but I'm not sure. And a couple other people, because we drove like one of those road white vans that look like, terrorist kind of vans or whatever. So we were driving one of those, and after the show, we were on our way either back to the hotel or back home in Philly, and Robert Evans is driving, and bless his heart, he's exactly what he was in Ring of Honor. He's really R.D. Evans. He's very proper. He is very respectable. He's a gentleman. And so we're driving, and we come up to like this police stop, and I think they're checking for like seatbelts or drunk driving or something. But funny enough, when we drive up, like everything is fine. We get through, and then all of a sudden the cop comes after us. So we're like, what the hell just happened? Because I think either Evans probably ran a light or a stop sign. So the cop chased us, or not chased us, but like followed us, hit his lights, and we pulled over to the side. And of course, with law enforcement or anyone with power, when they think of wrestler, they think pills or drugs or the rock star type of person. So Evans is driving. We see the cops. Crap. So we pull over. Cop comes over. The first thing, bless his heart, the first thing Evan says is, "I'm sorry, officer, we are wrestlers and we're just on our way home from a show. We're very tired." And the cop just looks at him and looks at us. And just, you can tell in his eyes, it's like he's looking for something now that he knows we're wrestlers. Like, now we're going to get searched. Now we're going to have our plates ran. So that's basically what happened. We got searched. Thankfully, I don't do anything, but thankfully none of them had anything. And we basically went off on Evans, like, why would you tell him we were wrestlers? Like, you couldn't tell him we're coming back from like a school trip or something. But yeah, so good old gentleman Evans, first thing he says to a cop was that, and we get searched. Yeah, that's the best I have. I don't remember anything else. Well, the story didn't end with a full cavity search. I'm disappointed.
If it did, I was not looking.
or you don't remember, one of the two.
Or I don't remember.
So no dead hooker
wink,
stories
wink.
either.
Nope, none of those.
Well, Vader's not going to exactly have had anything, is it? I mean, the most dangerous things he's probably going to have is oats or tofu or something.
Pretty much, yeah.
But to steal a line from the Vader Scott podcast, we forgot to talk about Gail Kim.
Okay.
Because, we haven't mentioned TNA at all, and we know that you did a couple of shows with them, and you were part of a match that involved Gail Kim. You were in the Queen of the Knockouts gauntlet that took place earlier on this year as part of Knockouts Knockdown 2. Tell us a bit about your experiences at TNA. It sounds like you must have enjoyed the first one because you went back for the second one this year.
Yeah, like ever since I moved here, they've been calling me since I moved, and then this year, last year I wrestled Tara, which was amazing. She's incredible, so smart and sweet, and I love her to pieces. This year I wrestled, funny enough, I wrestled Santana. What's her TNA? Brittany?
Yeah.
Is that her? Yeah. So I wrestled, I'm going to call her Santana because that's how I know her as. So I wrestled Santana, and the funny thing is we've never even wrestled each other at Shine. Always seen each other, always talked to each other, seen each other at other shows, never wrestled each other. So I thought this was really cool. And the fact that I was really happy that it was with Santana because, one, we were in Shine together, and I already knew what her style was. And I felt that I would be able to bring out what she brought out in Shine. Because at that point, I think she's only been at TNA for a very short amount of time, so she wasn't able to really showcase what she could do. So I know when I went to Santana, I was like, all right, you know what? You're the one that's signed. I'm not. Let's get all of your stuff in. So I had a really fun time working with Santana. She hasn't changed a bit. She is so sweet and still a doll. And surprisingly enough, which I thought even I was shocked at, like, I won. So they let me win over Santana, and I was able to be a part of the Battle Royal, which I thought was really cool because, like, Gail is awesome. At AIW, we actually had, like, she was a special ref, and it was me and Mickey Knuckles, which was also a fun match. So that was the first time that I met her. So it was nice to actually be in the ring with her to wrestle her. Super smart, followed her lead, and I was able to be in there with her, Madison, Brooke, like all these, basically the TNA girls, which I thought was awesome. And the fact that I was able to stay in for a lengthy amount of time was really cool. So I had a really fun time, and it was nice to have my friends there too. Like Jessica lives here, but I haven't seen Marty in, a couple months and stuff. So it was nice to just hang out with them along with the TNA girls and being like a big group and just being able to hang out and chat and stuff. So it was nice. It was it wasn't intimidating. I think because I've already been there, it wasn't intimidating. So I was able to interact more and get to joke with Gail and Madison and stuff. So it was really cool.
Awesome. I mean, and again, as we mentioned with Veda last week, this is not yet been broadcast, but probably going to be September, we think. That should be available on pay-per-view, so check that out when it comes. Mia, listen, we've, as I said before, gone super long on the podcast, but we have no problems with that. We've very much enjoyed having you on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we just want to give you a chance at the end of the show now just to plug yourself, plug anything you got coming up that you want to make sure people are aware of. How can people get hold of you on social media? You're very active on there, for example. The floor is yours.
Well, first I want to thank you guys for having me, and I want to thank all of those who actually want to hear me and my boring life. I am all over the internet, so at Mia Yim for Twitter, Facebook /Mia Yim, Instagram Mia Yim #3. So if you want to just tweet me or